Hello and welcome to the Dr. Proctor Show here on KHTS AM 1220, your hometown station.com. This is Lisa Solis DeLong filling in for T. Katz. As T often says, Dr. Proctor is an opportunity for listeners to peek over the shoulders of medical professionals, both to get a glimpse of what their lives are like, but also to broaden our understanding of what to do when we find ourselves in front of a healthcare professional as that person in need of healing. When it comes to healthcare professionals, I use the word us or we because I am a registered nurse and I have been so for over 30 years. And it's been an interesting ride in the healthcare profession for me. I have had the experience of being both the person offering healing and also the person in need of healing. But mostly my nursing background surprisingly was needed more for my own family than for strangers. I wrote a book about my life experience called Blood Brothers, a memoir of faith and loss while raising two sons with cancer. And that book has led me to becoming a national speaker as part of a healthcare bureau, speakers bureau. It's based in Pensacola, Florida, and it's called Studer Group. And the lovely Studer Group folks go in and offer leadership and management training to healthcare professionals, both here in the States and in New Zealand and Canada. And so when I was invited to their bureau, I was very, very happy to be able to share my story. I am an inspirational speaker with them. And in doing so, I've had the incredible opportunity of speaking with many thousands now of healthcare professionals, both physicians, nurses, respiratory therapists, food service, everybody across the healthcare systems. And I'm finding that they have one thing in common, and that is that it takes a very special kind of person to be willing to even step into a hospital. There are many people who cannot even walk through the doors of a hospital. I've seen this and witnessed this myself. And so when I think of healthcare professionals, I know from my own experience and from sharing so many stories with others that it takes a very special kind of person, a person who has a calling as a healer. And today I'm so excited to introduce you to one of those special people. Her name is Carly Broyles, and she is a registered nurse here in Santa Clarita. She has been a registered nurse for over 18 years, and her specialty is labor and delivery. And Carly is a special person to me, not only because of my sistership as a nurse, but also because when I met Carly a couple of weeks ago, our lives intersected in a really interesting way, and I'll let Carly tell you more about that. But welcome, Carly.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
I'm so excited that you're able to be here. So tell us a little bit about what got you started in nursing in the first place, and that way we'll start at the beginning and then we'll see where that takes us.
All right. My earliest memory of my great-grandfather was visiting him in a hospital. He was in the end stages of Huntington's disease, which is a genetic disease that runs in my mom's side of the family. And I remembered feeding him with a straw and just being really intrigued by the whole experience of being in a hospital for the first time and seeing what imminent death really looked like and how I felt about it, and wanted to understand and wanted to feel that connection. So I think that's where it first grabbed hold of me, and I sensed this urging toward wanting to nurture and be there for people in their times of need.
And how old were you then?
I was really young. I think I must have been around 5.
Mm-hmm. And that's the interesting thing, as I was sharing about having conversations with healthcare workers across the country, is really most of us have a very early recognition that healing matters. that there's, not every 5-year-old notices that grandpa is ill. A lot of 5-year-olds would be like, I'm out of here, I want to go play. But there was something in you that was embedded at that time that was a little spark, For me, it was, I went fishing with my family, and I share this story as part of my inspirational presentation, because I just think to discover our calling can come in many forms. And for me, we went fishing, and my brother was, he had caught like 5 or 6 fish, and there was one of them that started to float, and it bothered me. So I showed it to my mom, and she said, well, if you put the little fish back in the water, and you hold it by the tail fin and push it back and forth, it'll force oxygen over its gills, and maybe it will live. And so I did that. I got the little fish out of the bucket, and I put it in the water, and I pushed it back and forth, and sure enough, that little fish went swimming off, and it was amazing. And it was a very it's an embedded memory in my mind that I stood there on the edge of the water, like, what just happened? And I was really in wonder about life and death. And it's those times, even as a young child, when we realize that, yes, this is what life looks like. This is what a living thing looks like. And this is what something looks like when it's no longer alive. And that awareness that we all have that capacity. And then that next level of, wow, I want to intervene. This doesn't scare me. In fact, it piques curiosity in me. So there you were, a 5-year-old with your grandfather who had this very complex, and my understanding of Huntington's is that it's quite a slow process of debilitation. And so what was that like in those early years? Were you witness to many years of his illness, or was it kind of a pinpoint mark for you?
That was my only memory of him. He passed away shortly after that, but I got to see my grandmother, his daughter, walk through that same journey, and her brother, because it's not skipped a generation in my family yet.
Oh, wow.
Fortunately, my mom has had the genetic testing done, and we do not have that disease in her line any longer. But I do have specific memories of my grandmother on hospice. I was in nursing school at the time that she was going through it. So I remember being there when we were making those end-of-life decisions, and my family looking to me. So it came full circle. As I became a nurse, I was right back there again.
Isn't that so interesting? I find that fascinating too. So your first recognition was when you were 5, and then, once we take on the role of nurse, even while we are in nursing school, we become that person in the family that family members, friends recognize and go to. So when I was in nursing school, we wore hat caps. We had, the traditional white nursing cap. And I think about that, and you see images in movies and that kind of thing of nurses and their caps, and how it's almost like being a nun. You walk outside and you have this thing on, this entity that marks you as a professional nurse, or and because the cap actually is a descendant of a nun habit. At least that's my understanding of it. It is a demarcation of that you are a professional. You've jumped through the hoops to be called a nurse, and I always found it very powerful to wear it, and felt a sense of pride about wearing it. And nowadays, when I speak, there's I show a picture of myself with a nurse cap on, and I go, "Does anyone else out there have a cap anymore?" And all the gray-haired older nurses raise their hands. I still have my cap, or I have a photo like this. And nowadays, that most nursing schools are not using caps. At least I don't know of any that still do. So what do you see as your signature look when you walk out into the community? Like when do you feel like anybody who sees me right now is going to know that I'm a nurse, or at least suspect?
I would say when I'm wearing my scrubs, when I leave the hospital and I have to run an errand, or sometimes I have to book it to a basketball game for a kid, or whatever it may be. A few times I've been picking up food to go, and the the girl checking me out says, "You delivered my baby," because she sees the logo on my scrubs, and she puts it together because she sees my face with the scrubs. So I think that's probably our thing now, even though most healthcare professionals wear scrubs, especially because they have my hospital logo. People in the community know who I am and where I'm from.
Right. So let's go back to that. So years ago, I worked at Henry Mayo, Newhall Memorial Hospital on the women's unit. And I was working there when my oldest son, Justin, was diagnosed with leukemia when he was 5, and that was in 1990. And nursing as a profession served me so well because I could integrate the needs of my family with working part-time. And I worked evening shift, which was always my favorite. Evening shifts don't really exist anymore. Most everything is 12-hour shifts now. But I could take care of the kids during the day, and then either a neighbor or my husband, Dave, would take over the afternoon, and I would go to work. So but you and I actually have crossed paths during that time. And this was so interesting when I first talked to Carly about being on the show. I did not know this, but tell me what you told me about, what you remember about working or being at Henry Mayo in those days.
I was a student volunteer in the beginning of high school back in 1990, the same time that you were there, Lisa. And I worked on the women's unit. I used to bring juice to all the mommies and help feed babies and make them ice packs and all that kind of stuff. So I remembered your face as soon as I saw you. I don't always remember names, but I definitely remember a lot of the nurses that were there because I was there for a while. So yeah, that was kind of fun when we made that.
Isn't that funny? So this is Lisa Solis along with Carly Broyles on the Dr. Proctor Show here on KHTS 1220, hometownstation.com. And we're discussing really the role of your life in the community is really what's coming out of our conversation, and serving the community for so many years. And just before you had mentioned, being in the grocery store line with your scrubs on and having somebody come up to you and say, you delivered my baby. And I have to share as well that was a wonderful feeling for me. Although I never did labor and delivery, I did postpartum and normal newborn. And there was a lot of teaching involved with that, with, all the natural needs of a mother after having a baby and breastfeeding and all those kinds of things. A lot of educating to be done. And I always felt this really awesome sense of pride of being that person who was able to help in those formative moments and those pivotal moments when a baby is born, and easing some of the anxiety that a new mom will go through. But tell us a little bit about what led you specifically, like where did your education begin? Where did you go to school, and how did you decide? Obviously, you were volunteering on the women's unit way back in 1990 when my oldest was 5. And I've had 4 since, and of course the family history of ours with having 2 sons with cancer. And how nursing for me led me in and out of actually day-to-day work. So there were times when I had to take a break to support my family on a more practical level. But I want to go back to that 90s. And how did your career progress from there? So you were in your teens, you were in the hospital at Henry Mayo, and bringing juice to the patients. And I remember those days because we loved having our volunteers. We
still do.
Yes, you still do. Awesome. Because that's, if there's anyone out there listening who has an interest in the healthcare profession, a great way to discover whether it's a good fit for you or not is to volunteer. Whether you're a teenager or in midlife or even elderly, we have volunteers in hospitals that serve in all aspects. So, but tell us about what that was like to go from being the volunteer to getting your education and then becoming a licensed nurse.
I fell in love with the whole process when I was a little high school volunteer. I already knew I wanted to be a nurse. I already knew healthcare was for me. And seeing the tiny babies and the joy, and I had so much respect for the staff and they were so knowledgeable, and they were so autonomous. They were in charge. They were running that place. And I was like, wow, I was just really enamored with the whole experience. And so I think that was probably what caught me in, helped me decide that labor and delivery was something I really wanted to do. But back when I graduated, you couldn't just jump into a specialty. You had to kind of do your time in med surg. You had to really learn the ropes. So it was hard to just find a job in an area like labor and delivery. So you kind of had to earn your stripes. So I started out working on a short stay surgical unit, and some amazing nurses took me under their wing and taught me and loved me. And it was so great because there was such a diversity of patients and diagnoses going on that unit. I would get floated a lot because I was the new young one. So I got to experience a lot of different things, but we took care of all kinds of patients, everything from surgical, overnight stay kind of patients, to getting people ready for open heart surgery, to patients going to the cardiac cath lab, to patients getting electroconvulsive therapy treatment, to patients that needed transfusion. So I got a lot of practice at skills and at teaching and interviewing patients. And I did that for 3 years. And then the hospital that I worked at the time was offering the very first labor and delivery training program for nurses in the hospital. And I got 12 weeks of didactic training off campus and a really long, great orientation under the tutelage of really great nurses. And so that gave me a foundation with being a nurse for 3 years. So I did that in the year 2000 and have been in labor and delivery ever since.
Well, there's a couple of things that are jumping out at me about what you're saying, and one of them is your positive view of the role that other nurses played as mentors early
Definitely.
on. And I love hearing that because so often I have heard this phrase that older nurses eat their young, right? I mean, how many times have you heard that?
Over and over.
Right? And so, this is a really good opportunity to rewrite that story. Older nurses come in with a whole different life experience. They're there with an entire background, sometimes 30, 40 years. I think at one time, the average age of working nurses, this was probably about 5-10 years ago, was like 65. That's an older average age for any profession. And it saddens me to think that younger nurses would come in and be afraid of their mentors. And I definitely had that experience a couple of times in my career as a new nurse, and then even throughout my profession. There was always that kind of scary older personality that you were like,
Right.
Just leave her alone, don't push her buttons, and this is just how she is. This is the way she rolls. And at the same time, I would definitely agree with you that I had far more kind and caring and nurturing mentors in my profession, in my professional experience, than not. So it does my heart good, and hopefully the listeners as well, to know that, the nursing profession, not all of us eat our young. It can be a loving experience. And you actually used the word love several times in that description of those early years. And so it gives me a lot of hope that more nurses, and I am seeing this in younger nurses, that there really is more of a embracing of each other and supporting of each other, and the idea that we want to diffuse fear within the profession. And that really resonates with me as with the work that I do, because the world definitely needs less fear and more love. And so I really appreciated you sharing that aspect of your experience. So you went you went into labor and delivery, and we will need to take a break here pretty soon, but let's talk more about the labor and delivery experience, and we definitely have some stories to share about that on the second half of the show. But for now, how would you sum up your that first part of your life, like when you think about, your grandpa and your grandma, and then the aspect of death and being the teacher, and then here you are working in an area where you're bringing in life.
It's funny because I still see both ends of the spectrum. I work every day bringing life into the world, and sometimes I'm seeing it go. I'm helping parents who are welcoming a stillborn baby, and so it still is there. And I think it's been learning to see death as just a natural and normal thing as birth.
That's awesome. Yeah. So this is definitely an aspect of the work that I do that I'm really intrigued about. And so when we come back, we will pick up from there. This is Lisa Solis DeLong on Dr. Proctor, KHTS 1220, your hometown station.com.